Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very special guest returning to the channel to talk with you about how he's been doing. His first video with me was called the Super Non-Traditional Pre-Med, and it has become one of my most popular videos. And I know a lot of people were so inspired by his story, and so I wanted him to come back and talk about how life has been now that he started med school. Before we get started, if you're new here, I am a dermatology resident and I make videos for those who are thinking about or currently training in medicine. I give advice based on my own life experiences, and sometimes I bring on guests onto my channel so you guys can hear unique stories of those who are on the medical journey themselves. If this sounds like something you're interested in, be sure to subscribe to my channel now. So let's get started on listening to Daryl Traylor's amazing update about how he's been doing now that he's no longer a super non-traditional pre-med, but he is a super non-traditional medical student. And sit back, relax, and enjoy the video.
Hey guys, happy Saturday. It's been a while since we last spoke. I did one of these videos for Dr. Douglas, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months ago, explaining my journey as a non-traditional applicant to medical school. And today I am going to tell you how everything's been going. I just recently wrapped up my first block of classes. That was probably the fastest 10 weeks of my life. I think that I did well on final exams. And so I'll share with you my perspectives of what medical school is like for the non-traditional student. So, as some of you know, I'm attending the University of the Incarnate Word School of Osteopathic Medicine here in San Antonio, Texas. Our school is a little different than a lot of schools in the sense that our curriculum is set up to be very student friendly. What I mean by that is that we have classes that run from roughly 8 a.m. in the morning till around 12 in the afternoon. Sometimes we may have a guest speaker or maybe something to do pertaining to our EMT class or something like that. That'll make the day go till around 1 or 2. But the majority of days we're done by noon. So a typical day, so we'll say Monday. So the way Mondays go, we get to class at 8. We'll have a case study group that'll go for 2 hours from 8 to 10. We'll get 2 case studies for that week. And on that Monday, we will extract what we think are the important learning objectives for that case study. And then after the case study group, we'll have 2 hours of what they call large group. And that's where we basically get some basic biomedical sciences lecture to help provide sort of a framework of what the case study is going to be about. Then from there, we go home to study, or you basically use the day how you feel that you need to use it. On Tuesdays, we have what's called docs. So the first part of docs, we work on things like how to conduct a proper history and physical, or how to conduct a neuro exam, or how to conduct a musculoskeletal exam of the extremities, what have you. Then the second 2 hours of docs will actually be in the OMT lab, learning some OMT techniques, things like myofascial release or the osteopathic structural exam, something like that. Then on Wednesday, it's just basically a repeat of Monday. The only difference is that on Wednesday, we will actually review or cover the first case study. So let's just say we had a case study about organophosphate poisoning. Everybody will come back and report out what they found out about organophosphate poisoning. We'll discuss it. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't agree. But essentially, it's I guess it's sort of designed to prepare us for what we'll be doing as physicians when we present case studies or go to grand rounds and things like that. Then we'll go to large group lecture, and then again at noon, the rest of the day is yours. Then on Thursdays, we have gross anatomy lab. It's divided into 2 parts. The first part of gross anatomy lab will cover histology, embryology. We might cover some anatomy, but essentially it's sort of a lecture. And then the last part, the last 2 hours, is actually in the gross anatomy lab looking at specimens. We don't do the traditional dissection model of medical education. All of our specimens are prosected, so we're not spending 4 or 5 hours in the lab scraping fat or doing things like that. We actually go in, we see the structures as they need to be seen, and we have more time to actually learn the anatomy. Personally speaking, I've done gross anatomy where I've had to dissect the entire cadaver, and in my personal opinion, it was an overrated experience. I just remember melted contacts, coming home funky every day, and then scraping fat for hours and hours and hours. So I much prefer the way that we're doing gross anatomy. So anyway, that's Thursday. Then on Friday, we have the report out for the last case study from 8 to 10, and then we'll have large group lecture from roughly 10:10 until noon. And that's it. For this first block of classes, we also had a EMT basic course incorporated. The goal of this course is to give us clinical skills so that once the second block starts, which is Monday the 27th, we'll be able to go out and start doing some volunteer work in the community, ride-alongs with San Antonio Fire and EMS. We'll be doing some work with local schools, school nurses. We'll also be shadowing some family medicine doctors and things like that. We also have a mobile outreach van that we'll be working with to do some community service, street medicine with as well. The EMT course, I've been an EMT before, so it's second nature to me. Some of my classmates are finding it a little difficult to incorporate the EMT work into our existing medical school work. And I do believe that the school could have executed this better. It probably would have been better to have this course completed in the summer before we actually started medical school or something like that. But it is what it is. Medical school has been, in some ways, what I expected. I mean, it's tough. There's a lot of material. I'm really glad that my school has the curriculum set up the way it is, so I have plenty of time to study. But other aspects of the curriculum or medical school are different than what I thought. So my medical school isn't one that does testing utilizing multiple choice tests. All of our tests are written exams, right? And that is challenging because you really have to know your stuff. You can't go in and BS your way through organophosphate poisoning or how you would treat organophosphate poisoning or what have you. You either know it or you don't. The advantage is that we will probably be better trained to think critically once we get out to clinical rotations. The disadvantage is that more falls on us to make sure that we're preparing for the board exams. And our school has actually bought us a subscription to the Kaplan Board Review course, and we're actually going to start working on those questions in the second block that starts on Monday. The school had roughly an 88% first-time board pass rate for the first group of students who took the boards last year. As long as that board pass rate continues to increase, that'll justify continuing the curriculum as it is. Personally speaking, I like the curriculum. It's very much the way that my PhD program was, and I wouldn't change things in that regard. Medical school has also been challenging from a financial aspect. I came from teaching at the university level, making about $75,000 a year. My wife is also a professor of medicine, making around $98,000. So we had a very comfortable life. To go from me making that money to making basically nothing. Well, I am still teaching adjunct at AT Still, but essentially that's what $2,500 a class for 2 classes. So almost making nothing. That's been a challenge. God blessed me to get a scholarship. I got a scholarship from the VA that's covering 100% of my tuition and fees. I'm also getting $1,000 a month, a little over $1,000 a month to help with living stipend or living costs, and then I get a pot of money to buy books and supplies with. So that's been a real blessing because my wife, makes so much money. I didn't have to take out any loans for housing. But I think that if you're a non-traditional student, one of the things that's really important to consider is how I'm going to pay for this, and not just the school. You have to think about things like car notes. If you have a child, you might need childcare. You've got to think about your groceries. You're thinking about utilities, health insurance, car insurance, all these things. So you need to make sure that you have a really well thought out financial plan. You need to make sure that your credit score is good. The scholarship that I got was actually partially based on credit. you had to have at least a 650 credit score. The VA also did a 10-year background check. So basically, having a good credit score is something that is really vitally important coming into medical school. Um, Outside of that, though, things are going really well. I've been very accepted by my classmates. Our class tends to skew a little older than some medical schools. I think the average age of my class is around 26. I am the oldest in the class, but there's a lot of individuals in my class who are married, who have kids. A lot of people have come from previous careers, firefighters, nurses. We've got a couple of PAs. Got at least one other person in the class who came from university teaching like I did. So we get along well. It's still kind of a weird experience. Some of my professors are younger than I am, some older, but those that know that I have a PhD, not something that I advertise, but for those who know that I have a PhD, they'll refer to me as Dr. Traylor in class. And that's odd. I'm still getting used to hearing, Dr. Traylor. And sometimes I think that may, I don't know, some of my classmates may not necessarily appreciate that. It is what it is. But overall, it's been a really good experience at the school. Our school is unique in that, like, the whole first 2 weeks of classes, we spent learning how to be a medical student. We learned things like how to actually study, who to go to if you had problems with, let's just say, food or housing, behavioral health issues, things like that. The school is really big on self-care. They kept, even now, after this 10-week session, they're still drumming that into our head. I can't think of a single lecture or class activity where they haven't, mentioned somewhere, take care of yourselves. This is a long race, so you have to make sure that you get to the end of it in good order with plenty of energy and plenty of happiness to achieve your goals. The school wants us to really focus on studying and becoming successful as a medical student. So in our first year, we're not allowed to hold membership in any of the student clubs. We can participate. So, like, for example, SNMA is doing a thing with the food bank this week, so I can go and participate in that, but I can't hold membership in any of their student organizations or anything like that. I can't do anything like that until the second year. I did get permission to present some research at a upcoming American Medical Association conference, the 2021 Research Challenge. But again, I had to get permission for that. They had to look and see how I was doing in classes and that sort of thing there. And I really respect that. Medical school really is a full-time job. There's a ton of material that you have to absorb. As you can see over my shoulder, all the textbooks that I have, I've had to look in every last one of those textbooks for information for case studies or information for anatomy or a biochemistry lecture or something. So I think it's actually good that they're limiting our participation in certain organizations. It's also really good, again, that they're really focusing on issues of self-care and things like that. Something else that's been interesting, coming into medical school, I was sure as shit that I was going to pursue a career in emergency medicine or family practice. I'm a 20-year combat veteran. I was a combat medic during my entire time in the military, worked as a civilian medic for a while. I also had the chance to work in some civilian primary care clinics. So I just knew, okay, emergency medicine or family medicine, that's what it's going to be. But I've discovered that I have a talent for physiology. And so now gastroenterology and endocrinology are sort of creeping into my mind. And I bring this up because a lot of times you'll hear students say, well, I know I want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. I want to be an anesthesiologist. I want to do this. I want to do that. The reality is, once you get to medical school, you're going to be exposed to so many different things, so many different people, different ideas, that your interests are very likely to change. And even if you do end up saying, hey, I'm going to be a cardiothoracic surgeon, that's great. Just be open to the possibility that things could change for you. Just be open to the things that you're going to be exposed to. I've been exposed to so much just by virtue of the fact that my school is in one of the poorest parts of San Antonio. I've been able to, look at the actual physical environment in this community, and I've started to think about, okay, well, what are some careers that I might be able to get into that might help me to address some of my interest in environmental medicine, for example. So there's so much you're going to be exposed to, and I think it's really important to make sure that you're open-minded. What goes along with that is that when you're actually searching for a school, you need to make sure that it's a school that's going to be fit for you and the kind of life that you want to lead as a medical student. For me, I'm married. My wife and I don't have any children. We just adopted 2 cats, so I guess they are our children. But my most important role in my life is that of husband. And I wanted to attend a school that would give me the time and the space to fulfill, my obligations to my wife as her husband. Some of the other schools that I had been accepted to didn't necessarily give me that time and space, but UIW did. You also want to think about, well, what school is going to help you best get to your career. Some schools have a very, very heavy primary care orientation. And if your goal really is to be a cardiothoracic surgeon or anesthesiologist or radiologist, well, maybe attending a school that has that primary care orientation may not be the best fit for you. You want to think about things like, what is the curricular style? How are our students taught? I knew from the get-go that I wouldn't do well at a school where somebody stood in front of me and read off of a PowerPoint every day. So I specifically looked for schools that incorporated a lot of case-based learning, flipped classroom, Socratic method of lecture, because that's how I was taught as a PhD student, and that's how I was taught through the first 2 master's degrees that I have. So basically what I'm saying is that when you are looking at schools, when you're going through the interview process, make sure that you're interviewing that school as well. Make sure that you are choosing some place that you can be happy at for the next 4 or 5 years, of your life. It's a lot of time, a lot of money to invest in a place if you're not going to be happy. I think that the final tip that I would leave you guys with is that it's very important to make sure that before you ever start medical school, develop a really good, strong, sound plan in terms of how you're going to take care of yourself, your mental health, your physical health, how you're going to take care of your family's mental, spiritual, physical health. My wife and I purchased 2 exercise bicycles, something similar to Peloton, but not Peloton. So we are heavily involved in our physical fitness. We get up every morning around 5 to go for a ride. And then when I get home from classes, I usually will go for a ride for about 30 minutes before I start studying. And then at night, we'll lift weights. We turned our garage into a weight room. When we go to bed at night, we usually spend 20 to 25 minutes picking a random scripture of the Bible to discuss. And we'll say our prayer before we go to bed. My wife makes sure that I have breakfast every morning before I leave. Lunch when I get home. We usually split the duties in terms of dinner. And, if I feel like I, need to see a therapist, we have therapy on campus. And of course, don't be ashamed to avail yourselves of that opportunity. One of my classmates, his child had a health issue recently, and it almost broke him. And I was really happy that our school provided therapeutic services to help him and his family, get beyond that. And of course, he was willing, excuse me, he was willing to take advantage of those services. So don't be ashamed to take advantage of those services. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. So I will close. As I said, my next block of classes starts on Monday, the 27th. We'll be starting with musculoskeletal and integument. Hopefully, Dr. Douglas will have me back so I can let you guys know once again what my experience has been like. But certainly if there's anybody out there that is seeking any sort of mentorship or guidance as a non-traditional student going through this process, feel free to shoot me an email. My email address is Daryl, that's spelled DARYL, Traylor, TRAYLOR, followed by the number 1 at gmail.com. You guys have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
How great was that update? I am so happy to hear how well he's been adjusting to medical school. And I really hope that this was inspiring to any one of you who is a non-traditional applicant, who's really concerned about how you're going to adjust as an older applicant, as an older student in medical school. And hopefully his video helps put you at ease. I think some of the things that I was really so excited to hear about was one, that his medical school class has a lot of students who have kids and who are married. When I was in medical school, that actually was very rare. And so I'm so happy to know that the face of medicine is changing, that people who are becoming doctors are allowed to be who they are and are allowed to come in from so many different journeys. We no longer have to be this cookie cutter applicant to be able to get into medical school. We're able to have like completely different journeys and still have that opportunity to become amazing physicians. I also loved that as an older student, he was able to still decide to change his mind in specialty interests. So I know I talk to a lot of pre-meds who think they've already decided what they want to do, which is completely fine. I always say that once you start medical school, just go in there with an open mind. Make sure that you're shadowing, and you shadow in specialties which you never thought you were going to shadow in, just so you can just be exposed. And not because you're older means that you're any more sure. Medical school will really broaden your horizons, make you learn so much more about medicine that you probably didn't know about before, and just be open to possibly changing your mind. So I'm really happy that he discussed that he too has changed his mind in regards to his specialty interests. But my most favorite thing that he touched on was that his priority is still to be a husband. I think we don't talk about enough about who we are outside of medicine. We all have goals and dreams for ourselves that outside of medicine. And for him, one of it includes being a husband and building a family with his wife. And I think that we should all be allowed to dream that for ourselves, meaning like dreaming a life for ourselves outside of medicine, and be able to attain that while on our journeys. And I think it's really important that you look for schools, medical schools, where their missions fit with your missions and their goals fit with your goals, because that's what's going to help you be happy, where you can be somewhere where you can be free to be who you want to be while you're attaining your dreams as well. And I just love to hear that even though he's adjusting to medical school, he's still able to enjoy life with his wife. And I just am so happy that he's doing so well in the first few months of medical school. And like I said, I really hope for those of you who are nervous about being older med students, that this erases all of your fears, where you're just like, I can do this. His story is very unique. There are so many different unique stories out there, and I don't want anyone watching this to ever feel like they don't belong in medical school. If you want to be a doctor, you belong. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. If you were inspired by his story, learned something from his story, not only press that like button, but let me know in the comments what inspired you. What did you learn about? And make sure you subscribe to my channel and you press that bell button so you know exactly when I drop a lot of these videos which have so much gems in it. I love talking with you all. I hope you learned something today. I hope you press that like button to let me know that you enjoyed this video. And I hope to see you guys at my next video. Have a good one. Bye.